The Chargers are in the playoffs, as we all know, and on Saturday we will see the Chargers take on the Jacksonville Jaguars in their wild card matchup. And like we do every single week, I want to do my keys to success for the Chargers this week. And of course, this being the most important game of the year, there is plenty to talk about. Now, earlier in the year, we did see the Chargers and Jaguars take on each other in Week 3, but the Chargers would lose astronomically bad, 38-10. Now, of course, both these teams are dramatically different than they were at that time, but it is good to kind of look at that game for some examples on what this game will look like, and also some stats and stuff to kind of figure out exactly what's going to occur and what could occur this week. Now, this marks the first time the Chargers have been in the playoffs since 2018. Phillip Rivers was still the quarterback of this team in 2018. That is just insane to think about. The last time the Chargers were in the playoffs was Phillip Rivers, especially with how great Justin Herbert has been. But nonetheless, there's plenty of good things that this team can continue to do long term. With all the excitement surrounding this game, you want to make sure that you keep your eyes on the prize, and that's, of course, winning this game. And I'm sure the players are doing just that, but us as fans as well, we're so excited, but we want to make sure we fully understand what this game could turn out to be. So, if you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. But, let's start getting moving into some of this greater things. And of course, earlier in the year, the Chargers lost 38-10, as mentioned earlier. But both of these teams could bring a lot to the table that was not seen in Week 3. So, what do the Bolts need to do to succeed this week? Well, firstly, I think a big factor in this is going to be the run game, and I think it's going to be on both sides. But first, let's start with the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chargers defending the run. So, the Jacksonville Jaguars currently rank 14th in rushing yards in the entire league and 13th in rushing touchdowns. Right above average, while on the other side of things, the Chargers ranked well below average at 28th in rushing yards allowed and 22nd in rushing touchdowns allowed. Not very good numbers for the Chargers on the defense side of things in the run game, but it definitely has improved over the past couple weeks here. So, I think this is where we kind of first look at the roster that the teams have currently and also take a little bit of a look back. When the Chargers saw the Jaguars in Week 3, it was a horrible game on the ground for the Chargers defense. They allowed a ton of yards on the ground. The exact number was 151 rushing yards. Now, the big thing, though, was 100 of those rushing yards came from James Robinson, who is now no longer on the team, which, of course, is good news for the Chargers, with James Robinson now being on the Jets. But Travis Etienne, who is their current running back, is ranked 9th in the entire league in rushing yards. So he's definitely a very, very good running back. And he did have 45 yards in the first matchup. So for the Chargers, definitely got to pick up in the run game. You've been struggling with it all year. You struggled with it the first time you saw this team. And you just really got to focus in on it. Now, I think Travis Etienne is still a really, really good running back and could cause some problems for you. But, you also got to look at the fact that you can't go all in because they do have a pretty solid passing game. But you got to be prepared for it. Bring some blitzes, bring some pressure, I think is a big factor. And be willing to load the box. Derwin James can move into the box. Use Drew Tranquill. Use Kenneth Murray. Use all your guys to, alleviate some of the pressure on the run defense. Of course, Sebastian Joseph today being here. Joey Bosa is going to be a huge factor in this. But just try to slow the run game down. Fun fact, fun fact, statistic, however you want to look at it. RG3, yes, Robert Griffin III, tweeted that a team that wins the run game, who has more yards in the game in the playoffs, wins 75% of playoff games. So, of course, 75% still leaves 25%. So, if the Chargers don't win the run game, of course, not end all be all, but it's still a really, really good sign for the team if they can limit the Jaguars and also beat them in the run game. Now, speaking of the run game for the Chargers, on the Chargers side of things, well, let's first look at the Chargers-Jaguars game in Week 3. It was abysmal for the Chargers in the entire game, but especially in the run game. We saw Sony Michel get more carries than Austin Eckler in Week 3, which Sony Michel is no longer on the team, but I don't know what they were doing in Week 3 that could have made them think that was the right choice. Nonetheless, Sony Michel had 5 carries for 22 yards, and Austin Eckler had 4 for 5 yards. So it was a really poor game, and everyone else, Joshua Kelly 1 for -3, DeAndre Carter 1 for -5, Justin Herbert had 1 for 7. It was a horrible rushing attempt game in that Week 3 matchup. Now, of course, like I said, this is a huge part where this team is dramatically different. Sony Michel's not on the team. Austin Eckler got himself into his own, ended with 18 touchdowns, 915 rushing yards, nearly hit 1K. This team is dramatically different, especially in the run game, but they still do suffer quite a bit in the statistical categories of this, with being, 30th ranked in rushing yards, bottom 3 in the league, but they are 18th in rushing touchdowns. So hopefully you can see them pick it up. I do like what Joshua Kelly has brought to the table here. Austin Eckler definitely been a great running back, and maybe, shuffle in some surprise runs, like a Keenan Allen over on, motion, Carter, Palmer, just, sneak in a couple run plays here and there and try to surprise the defense a little bit, because the Jaguars defense is very, very good. The Jaguars rushing defense is 14th in yards allowed and 12th in yards allowed and 14th in touchdowns allowed. So they have a top half, rushing defense, while the Chargers have a bottom 3 rushing offense. So a lot of things going on there. You got to be ready for the Jaguars rushing attempt there. And I think, of course, the best way to do that for the team to succeed is to kind of load the box a little bit. You have enough guys, and you've been doing really, really good man defense for the past couple weeks here. I think you can load the box, do man-to-man defense, and it'll work out pretty well for you. But offensively, you got to try to sneak in some runs here. Toss in some surprise runs on 2nd and long. I know we don't like that. If it does occur and it doesn't work, we're going to blame Joe Lombardi, but you have to be willing to do that every once in a while, because that could be where that big play comes from. And make sure that you are just consistent. You don't lean too heavily on one side of things. Now, the next key to success actually isn't going to be maybe what you think, but the Chargers got to make sure that they don't beat themselves. In the Week 3 matchup, where the Chargers lost big time, a huge factor in that was the Chargers beating themselves a little bit here and there. Sony Michel had a pretty easy pitch and catch that he could have had for, but it bounces off his hands, ends up getting intercepted, and it would lead to a touchdown for the Jaguars because they were already in the red zone. We also saw Herbert get a strip sack because he was just holding the ball out willy-nilly, and that would cause a strip sack. There was a 50-yard touchdown run on 4th and 1 because you clogged up the middle too much, and they did an outside run, and it was just didn't even get touched. James Robinson didn't even get touched on a 50-yard touchdown run on 4th and 1. This team beat themselves a lot in that first matchup, and you want to make sure you don't do that this week. Now, of course, you never want to do that, but you don't want to see something occur again, similar to what occurred. And the Chargers had 7 penalties for 54 yards in that matchup, while the Jaguars only had 2 for 10. So just try to make sure that you don't repeat nonsense of, simple mistakes that drastically change the game. Now, next topic, once again, is going to be getting this offense rolling, and especially the passing game for this offense, getting that rolling a little bit. Now, Justin Herbert has been incredible this year. I think no one's doubting that, except for maybe Achu. But nonetheless, Justin Herbert is 2nd in the entire league in passing yards. And if we can get something like that rolling again this week, it could be great news. Now, the team is still losing Mike Williams this week, which is a dramatic loss, especially from the fact that Staley was suggesting that he could have even returned last week's game. But Chargers are without Mike Williams. They do still have Keenan Allen. They do still have Palmer, Gerald Everett, Carter, Austin Eckler. They have plenty of options here, but it is definitely a big loss to lose a guy like Mike Williams. Now, some news is when the Chargers played the Jaguars in Week 3, Mike Williams was kind of a non-factor. He had 1 catch for 15 yards, and Keenan Allen didn't even play. So we might see a dramatic up boost in Keenan Allen's play. So hopefully that'll be a big factor. But Joshua Palmer had a huge game in Week 3. 6 receptions for 99 yards. And I could see some of that happening again this week with one of the players getting close to or breaking 100 receiving yards, especially because of the fact that the Jaguars have the 28th ranked passing defense, passing yards allowed, and 20th receiving touchdowns allowed. So a bottom feeder receiving, passing defense. And that's something that Chargers can target heavily. They've been poor in the run game, but when you have a guy like Justin Herbert, you still have Keenan Allen, Everett, all these pieces that I listed before that are massive parts of the passing game. This could be the perfect thing to target. And you want to make sure that Joe Lombardi doesn't ruin it for you. So, Joe Lombardi, if you somehow see this video, or to all fans, what needs to happen for the keys to success this week? Be willing to lean on your run game when you need to, because you can't go all in on your pass, because it'll become too easy to predict. Of course, pretty simple there. But we want to make sure that it's not all these quick, short routes that we've seen time and time again. These sticks where you just go to the first down marker and turn around. You don't want to see that. We want to see some big play opportunities, and we saw a little bit of that the past 2 weeks. It seemed like Joe Lombardi was trying to rotate some of those in, which is great news. We want to see some big plays, whether that is to actually produce the big play or to bring some pressure off the front end. Just, you got to alter some things up here. Whether that's play action, I think that's the best way you can get a good deep play is by play action, because they're going to go heavy. They have a really good run defense. They're going to bring guys up when they think they have a run. And then you go over the top. I want to see some shotgun plays. I want to see on a short, second and short, second and 3. You're in a very good position where if you run the ball, you could probably get that first down. Take a risk. Go for a big play opportunity, 15, 20 yards, something like that. And if you fail, now you got 3rd and 3. You can still manage that if you have the right play call. Be willing to go for those big play opportunities in the passing game. Now, Chargers do rate 3rd in passing yards, which is very, very good, and they're also 12th in passing touchdowns. Of course, we already mentioned what the Jaguars, defense looks like. Hiccups. We just got to make sure that this team can get something going. Now, for the Jaguars passing offense, once again, something that's really, really important. The Chargers have improved dramatically in the passing game as of late, have been the number 1 ranked defense passing-wise through the past 5 or 6 weeks. Huge step up, and that a lot comes due in part to Brandon Staley and a lot of man coverage. It's been working very, very well for this team, and the Jaguars definitely have a good share of weapons. They have the 12th ranked passing per yards, and also the 15th in receiving touchdowns. And they have guys like Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Travis Etienne, who's also very, very good out the backfield, and they also have the tight end Evan Ingram. Lots of options for this Jaguars team. And in the matchup in week 3, and of course, yes, I'm bringing this up time and time again because it is kind of good to look back. This team's changed a lot, but it still gives you a little bit of insight on this team. We saw Trevor Lawrence, 28 for 39, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And I will honestly say, a lot of those yards came from a lot of short passes, screens, a couple yards past line of scrimmage. We saw a lot of what the Chargers don't like about their offense in that game against the Jaguars. Receiving game, Zay Jones had 10 receptions for 85 yards. Christian Kirk had 6 for 72. Marvin Jones had 4 for 33. Travis Etienne, 3 for 30. And Evan Ingram had 1 for 9. So, there's a lot of weapons, truly a lot of weapons on this Jaguars team. But I think, if we look at matchups, I think this Chargers team matches up exceptionally well. Let's go, hit for hit. Christian Kirk, I think any of the cornerbacks probably could cover him. Michael Davis, Sam Jr. But I do think that Bryce Callahan will be the primary defender on him. I'm not quite sure why I think that, but I think Bryce Callahan will likely match up on Christian Kirk. Now, Zay Jones, I think, will, of course, be Asante Samuel Jr. or Michael Davis. If I remember correctly, Zay Jones is a little bit faster than most people, so I think Michael Davis might match up on him a little bit more, and the Marvin Jones or whomever the final receiver would be Asante Samuel Jr. And for Evan Ingram, who has been an exceptionally good tight end, we all know who's going to go on these good tight ends. and that's Derwin James. Now, of course, I do think Drew Tranquill could also go on them. Kenneth Murray, I think some pretty good guys that can cover the tight end position, but Derwin James is one of the best in the league at covering tight ends. Even the top of the line ones, like, of course, Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, George Kittle. We see Derwin James be a huge part in slowing down, if not stopping completely, those top guys. So I think you have to put Derwin James on Evan Ingram. And then lastly, you have guys like, Travis Etienne, and I already mentioned Marvin Jones. That's kind of your linebacker position, and I think Drew Tranquill can cover him pretty good. So I think man-to-man, this Chargers defense matches up just beautifully with this Jaguars offense. And I think that could be enough. Man-to-man coverage, of course, you do have to, be about 50-50 split with some zone. Hopefully bring some pressure too. I think a key to this defense in the passing game is be willing to take some risk on man-to-man defense, because this team matches up really, really well. Now, the final kind of thing here for keys to success is going to be the fact that the Chargers, as mentioned, haven't made the playoffs since 2018. A lot of these guys don't have playoff experience, at least a lot of the Chargers' homegrown people. Of course, you bring guys like Kyle Van Noy, Sebastian Joseph Day, I guess even J.C. Jackson, even though he's probably not with the team, Brandon Staley. A lot of these guys have been in some important games. There's plenty of guys on this team that have played in important games and have some experience, but the people that haven't, you can't let it get to your head. Yes, this is playoffs, but you got to approach it like it's a normal game. And I think Justin Herbert has done a pretty good job of that. He's acting like it's the same game. He was asked if he had a little bit more energy, a little bit more fire, and he said, well, if I had extra fire at this point in the week, it probably means I didn't have enough fire during the regular season. So that's a great way to approach it. And this team, keys to success is don't let it get to your head. Yes, it's a playoffs. Yes, it's a huge game, and it's win or lose, and that's it. You're out or you continue. That's the only options here. But don't let it get to your head. Don't get lost in the lights. And that's the final key to success for the Chargers. But what are your guys' thoughts on this? What are the keys to success, and what do the Chargers need to do to win? And I know I say it time after time, I don't like predictions, but let's have a little bit of fun. Let's have a little bit of fun. My predictions: Justin Herbert, 300 plus yards. I think he's gonna have 2 passing touchdowns, because I think they're gonna lean on that run a little bit, like they have been a lot when they get in the red zone. I think Austin Eckler is going to have 2 touchdowns total, maybe receiving, maybe both rushing. Not quite sure, but I think he'll have at least 2 total. And I'm gonna say this defense comes up with 2 turnovers, and I think Derwin's going to be the reason for one of them. And I think Joey Bosa gets 2 sacks this week. Score prediction, I'm going to say 28 to... It's a good number. I'm going to say 28 to 23. I think it's going to come down to the wire. I think it's going to come down to that last drive or 2 for both of these teams. And those are my predictions. What are yours? Feel free to leave those down below. Quick note here before we cut to the end of the video. I will be doing, a little bit early, but I will be doing a giveaway. It will be once I hit 500 subs. So if you want to be a participant in that giveaway, feel free to subscribe, have some more details. But I will be making a personalized poster for the winner's choice of favorite team or favorite player. So if you want to be a participant, please subscribe. Once we hit 500 subscribers, I will be doing that giveaway. But if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It truly means the world to me. And as always, I hope it taught some today. Hope it made you smile. Hope it made you laugh. Something really important to me. Affects most day in a great way, because every single day can be a great day if you all just put in the effort. And as always, you guys all be safe out there.